Has anyone else noticed that recently, Saudi Arabia has been everywhere?
Some of the biggest names in comedy have been performing at a very controversial festival in Saudi Arabia this past week, and they've been criticized by some for appearing to give legitimacy to a government with a very troubling human rights record.
Breaking news, Cristiano Ronaldo has signed for Saudi side Al Nassr. They have now confirmed it on their Twitter page.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the World Championships of Try Not to React.
Today, our two world finalists will face their greatest challenge yet, Riyadh season.
And here they come, Speed and KSI.
There seems to be a constant rotation of celebrities, news stories, and controversies coming out of Saudi Arabia in the past couple months. And from what I've learned, it's not by coincidence.
When you know what Saudi Arabia is all about, it's weird to go to a comedy festival that is paid for by Saudi Arabia. You know what I mean?
My brand new theme park opens up in less than 24 hours. This thing is the craziest thing I've ever done. I can't wait for you guys to experience this. Make sure you get your tickets before they sell out.
Last night, workers for the company United CMAC in Riyadh filmed their living quarters on a mobile phone. 7 to a room for 2, sleeping on the floor. Some in this company and others at camps across the kingdom, unpaid for more than a year.
How was the comedy festival you guys went to? Was it good?
Riyadh?
Yeah.
Wild, dude. It was crazy. Well, the backlash on the internet was even more insane.
Everyone's like, yeah, you should do it. Everyone's doing it. It's like, for Saudis?
Yeah.
Weren't those the 9/11 guys?
So I thought.
Aren't they exactly the 9/11 guys?
To many, this seems like an honest attempt at strengthening the tourism industry in Saudi Arabia, but it reveals something a bit more significant. A shift in power, a pendulum in motion, and a world that is changing faster than people can process.
What?
History in the making. This is a signing that will not only inspire our club to achieve even greater success, but inspire our league, our nation, and future generations, boys and girls, to be the best version of themselves.
In December 2022, after returning to his early home of Manchester United, jumping from the UK to Spain, Italy, and then back to the UK, all highly respected countries in the game of football, Cristiano Ronaldo signed a 2.5-year, $200 million contract with Al Nassr Football Club in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia.
Your reaction to this, Craig?
I have to say, not a surprise, but hugely disappointing. I think everything he's done recently has been hugely disappointing.
Although it's typical for veterans of the sport to play in smaller markets at the latter end of their career, this was a weird decision. Typically, those smaller markets are in the United States, like David Beckham and others playing in Los Angeles, or Messi currently playing for Miami.
So yeah, good luck to him. He can go there and pocket as much cash as he wants. But ultimately, he wanted Champions League, and he's got football obscurity. Come on. Nobody is going to bat an eyelid whether they play, and he plays 4 times a week.
Yeah.
He scores a hat-trick in every game.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to care.
Yeah,
Nobody is going to even bat an eyelid about it. And I thought all this time what he wanted was to finish and be in the limelight.
Yeah.
And he's completely gone in the opposite direction.
Craig's right, isn't he?
This was a story that really stuck out to people and made clear a turning point, a sign that Saudi Arabia was really up to something, and this time, it had nothing to do with New York City.
What is that? Oh no!
Let's get into Riyadh. People want to hear about Riyadh.
That was the night before Riyadh.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so
Now that's controversial.
So I'm just gonna paint the whole Riyadh picture. Let everybody know what they're trashing, what they're on, what they're talking about.
Yeah, I've talked to Louis and Santino, and they made it sound like this was the greatest night of their lives.
I know nobody wants to hear it, but I'm just gonna give you the whole what for.
Give it to me.
On July 23rd, 2025, an event was announced to the world, hosted by the Saudi royal family, the Riyadh Comedy Festival.
But no, what I've heard, dude, is that Riyadh festival is that they're like, you know, there's a lot of people that say people are getting paid by this Middle Eastern money.
Right.
You know, and that they can say this or they can't say that, or that they're over there, they're going to try to influence you guys in order to speak certain ways. Are you part of that conspiracy theory, or is that nothing you're on?
I've heard there's subreddits of like I think all these people are in bed with that. I just, I get the routing and I see the number and I go, I'll go.
This festival is one of those events that's meant for one thing, but does the complete opposite. In this case, shining a light on the brutality and corruption of the Saudi royal family.
So Saudis, but they have slaves, and they're not sound to women either, and they kind of chopped up an old journalist there, Khashoggi, and overall, as an establishment and a government, bad eggs. It's safe to say. Now,
the people who listen to this in the Spotify studio right now are probably staring their hair out at present, I would say.
Well, do you know what? They can fuck off, because this isn't Saudi Arabia and we're allowed to speak our minds.
This is true.
Why I think it's interesting from a broad like question of culture is how much can money buy in terms of your ability to say what you want. Because the thing is I think if you would put some of these people together, many would be, I think, quite critical of the Saudi government. Now, the Saudi government realizes that, which is why, a literal kingdom monarchy is holding a, quote, comedy festival to try and whitewash their image, just like they do with Live Golf and all that. Some people in America are like, hey, who cares? I'm like, well, 9/11, but whatever. Guess we're gonna move past that.
And in my opinion, I'm just glad attention is being drawn to the crimes of the US-backed Saudi regime. This is a government that created the largest cholera outbreak in history by bombing all of Yemen's water sanitation facilities. And they've been known to unalive journalists who don't push their preferred narratives, most recently and famously Jamal Khashoggi.
But he called me and he said, they heard what you said about them having slaves. I said, I was defending them for having slaves. I literally said, slaves are probably hard workers and for the most part, agreeable.
Most intelligent comedians still rising in their careers stayed as far away from this thing as they could. Shane Gillis, for example, was invited to this festival and would have likely been one of the biggest, if not the biggest comedian on the stage that night. But rather than accepting the invite and tarnishing the cult following he has in the United States, he called out Saudi Arabia and really just stated the obvious.
It was, it's funny, they just went to the desert and just fucking
They were
vibed
asking
out.
me to go to the Middle East soon.
What? What? Where? Why?
Saudi Arabia and UAE or Dubai.
Dubai?
I think I'm gonna pass.
Yeah. For the troops? Is it for the troops?
Not for the troops. It's for the Saudis.
For the Saudi princes?
Yeah, and everyone's like, yeah, you should do it. Everyone's doing it. It's like, for Saudis?
Yeah.
Weren't those the 9/11 guys?
So I thought.
Aren't they exactly the 9/11 guys?
Other comedians like Andrew Santino were defensive of their participation, claiming that Saudi Arabia is becoming a more progressive country. Sure, in the same way that making a prison wheelchair accessible is progressive.
How was the comedy festival you guys went to? Was it good?
In Riyadh?
Yeah.
Wild, dude. It was crazy. Well, the backlash on the internet was even more insane. It was insane.
That stuff seemed ridiculous to me, though.
Well, dude,
did you feel like it was?
Everyone is a walking contradiction, and there's a million miles of hypocrisy in people's arguments. And the fact that the community was attacking each other was very strange to me. Jimmy Carr said something that I thought was kind of a powerful statement. I don't always tend to look at where a country has been, because they're all flawed, but I'd like to see where they're going. And he says, I'd like to think that where they're going is an attempt at progress and future and growth.
The full list of comedians at this thing is pretty crazy and shows just how much money is still locked up in Saudi Arabia. You have people like Aziz Ansari, Pete Davidson, Kevin Hart, Louis C.K. Not the brightest bulbs on the shelf, but expensive nonetheless. The name that I was really surprised to see was Bill Burr. Because Bill Burr, he gets this label from time to time from people like Hassan, the based label. And this doesn't exactly line up with some of his older statements and jokes. This seems like the kind of event he would have called out 5 years ago.
Beyonce and Mariah Carey actually did private New Year's gigs for $1 million. Did New Year's gigs for Gaddafi's kids. Can you fucking believe that? How much fucking money do you need to make, You're gonna take a gig where you're gonna go dance like a goddamn fucking clown for a mass murderer's kids? And then you take that fucking blood money and what he's done. Yeah, you couldn't remember that he claimed he was behind the Pan Am bombings that killed fellow Americans? The fuck is wrong with you?
The internet, the inner web of lies. I'm still thinking about that bullshit from a few weeks ago. That was a fucking, what a bunch of fucking fucking... Oh, that was one of the hardest things ever, to keep my mouth shut and just not trash every one of those fucking cunts. Oh, am I looking forward to running into a few people.
And then, on November 13th of this year, the one and only Jimmy MrBeast Donaldson, yes, Jimmy Beast himself, announced the opening of a brand new, never-before-seen amusement park, where you, yes you, can participate in all your favorite dangerous challenges featured in MrBeast's YouTube videos. And where is this theme park? You guessed it, Riyadh, Saudi Arabia.
This is the story of my day at the opening of Beastland, and how this was one of the best days of my entire life.
And no, MrBeast is not doing this for the money. He specifically chose Saudi Arabia because it's central to all his fans. What a nice guy! Beastland is described as a first-of-its-kind MrBeast destination, where adventure, competition, and entertainment collide across two zones, Beastland and Beast Arena. Yes, that makes a lot of sense. I see now. Beastland, Beast Arena. The collision of two zones. I love it. The partnership between MrBeast and Saudi Arabia was really the nail in the coffin for people. Like, what the hell is going on?
There's no opening bit. MrBeast opened a fair in Saudi Arabia.
So MrBeast is in every line of business you could possibly be in, and he chose Riyadh, Saudi Arabia to make Beastland.
I mean, MrBeast at least showed up to the opening of this temporary amusement park, but even he doesn't seem to want to be there.
It's crazy. I didn't expect this many people to show up to the theme park.
If it wasn't already clear, it isn't just some big coincidence that these big events with big names attached are taking place in Saudi Arabia. In fact, it's really no surprise at all. You see, these two events, the comedy festival and the theme park, were both put on as a part of Riyadh Season, a self-described global entertainment destination transforming Riyadh into the world's capital of entertainment through thousands of entertainment events. We'll see about that. And to announce this year's festival, they released this bizarre ad featuring IShowSpeed, which was pretty weird to see after he was unabashed about his support for Palestine over the past few years, a country that stands in stark contrast to the Saudi government, who's allied with Israel to basically control and bully the entire Arab world. So it turns out that Riyadh Season is just a component of this sort of expansive strategy to increase tourism and cultural power in Saudi Arabia. A sad attempt to improve their global image. According to their website, Vision 2030 is a blueprint that is diversifying the economy, empowering citizens, creating a vibrant environment for both local and international investors, and establishing Saudi Arabia as a global leader. So what does this tell us about the trajectory of Saudi Arabia? Because when you see these sorts of changes in a country, you have to ask yourself, why? Because everything is a reaction to something. Now, as you're probably well aware at this point, Saudi Arabia has a lot of money, or more specifically, the Saudi royal family. Situated on the Arabian Peninsula with its neighbors Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, Yemen, the UAE, and Oman, Saudi Arabia really has only one thing going for them: oil. Since about the end of World War II, but really ramping up in the 70s, Saudi Arabia was supplying the world with boatloads of oil, and America wanted in. They eventually struck up an agreement, and the rest was history. Saudi Arabia would go on to be a client state of the US, suppressing pan-Arab movements and bolstering America's control of the region. That was very simplified, but I'll expand on it in just a second. Now, when it comes to this big idea of Vision 2030, a lot of articles online point to the oil crash of 2015.
The recent 20% drop in crude oil prices might be saving you money at the gas pump, but it's now prompting job layoffs by U.S. energy companies. Joining me now via Skype from Houston is Lynn Cook of the Wall Street Journal. So how bad is it for the energy industry?
It's pretty bad.
The price of US oil has fallen below the symbolic threshold of $50 a barrel for the first time since April 2009. Benchmark Brent crude also tumbled about 6% to below $53 a barrel.
Well, oil prices have been very volatile. We've seen them reach almost $62 per barrel for WTI, which is higher than our projections in the lower $50 per barrel range. But with very little spare production capacity worldwide, we believe that oil prices will remain volatile for the foreseeable future going forward.
How many people are we talking about when it comes to layoffs?
Well, the estimates I've seen have been about 150,000 people laid off so far. And those have been typically blue-collar type workers.
In 2015, the United States massively increased its oil production thanks to efficiencies in a form of drilling.
You have your fracking,
A method that cracks open deep layers of rock to release oil that was once unreachable. Fracking itself isn't new, but the modern technology that's been able to pull huge amounts of oil from shale rock, a previously unreachable crop, is new. And this sudden breakthrough unlocked huge new supplies of American oil. That surge flooded the global market at the exact moment demand was slowing, and the result was a historic collapse in oil prices. And what country was hit hardest by that drop in price? Saudi Arabia. And only 2 years later, Mohammed bin Salman takes power as Prince of Saudi Arabia and declares 2015 was the year of the quick fix, 2016 is the year of the more organized quick fix, and 2017 is the year the vision will begin.
Localization and industrialization have been key recurring themes in the Vision 2030, starting from the goal of transforming Aramco from an oil-producing company into a global industrial conglomerate, to the push for localizing military, renewable energy, and industrial equipment sectors.
This purely economic analysis gets you far, but it doesn't truly paint the full picture. In an era where the entire globe is commercially linked through stock trading and banking, you have to factor in geopolitical relationships between entire nations. Because really, this isn't an oil problem at all. Sure, the oil prices plummeted and the Saudis had to find a way out, but it says much less about the power of oil than it does about the power of the United States. In all my research, there was really only one underlying explanation for all of this. One overarching reason as to why Saudi Arabia is diversifying their industry, moving beyond oil and beyond their oil deal with the United States. The rise of China. You see, Saudi Arabia is kind of in a tough place right now on the global stage. They're involved in BRICS, a movement to build power away from the United States, yet they still act as an American watchdog in the Middle East. They trade significantly more with China than the US, yet they still rely on American weapons to squash progressive revolutions in the Middle East. To put it simply, Saudi Arabia is required to balance its preference for a US-focused security relationship with its more Eastern-facing economic links. I've done a pretty poor job explaining the history of Saudi Arabia up until this point, but their current state of limbo makes a lot more sense when you realize they've always been like this, or at least since about 1967. In 1967, European terrorists occupying parts of Palestine continued their mission to occupy all of Greater Israel. In a brief six-day offensive, now dubbed the Six-Day War, these Europeans took control of the Sinai Peninsula, the Golan Heights, and even the West Bank, destroying anyone and anything impeding their mission.
What will happen if, by any chance, by later agreement, you have to move out? Never. You're not going to move out.
No, I was born here.
I think it's one of the greatest things we've ever done. 1 minute, come on.
I was born 5 minutes from here, from the old city, and this was my dream for 20 years to see this place. And I think we will not give it back. Never.
Was one of the reasons that you came here was that you fought for this war, was it?
That's right. We fought and we lost
we think
best
about
of our boys
that
here.
so long time. We think about this war is a long time.
2,000 years we are dreaming for
that.
this. This is our dream.
This was a major blow to the Arab states, so they began planning. In October of 1973, Egypt and Syria launched a surprise attack on Israel to reclaim the land Israel seized during the war in 1967.
It is an all-out war. That's how Israeli Defense Minister Moshe Dayan describes an invasion of the Golan Heights and the east bank of the Suez by Syria and Egypt. The surprise attacks came early this morning in the air and on the ground. This is the most serious fighting in the area since the Six-Day War of 1967.
It's called the Yom Kippur War, and real gains were made against Israel. That was until the United States got involved. Funneling in tanks, jets, and munition, it was soon clear that it was the United States fighting the Arab world and not Israel. And Saudi Arabia took note of this. Only 3 days after threatening oil embargoes on any nation funding Israel in this war, the King of Saudi Arabia declared a complete oil embargo on the United States.
The Middle East war produced developments all over the world today. The oil-producing countries of the Arab world decided to use their oil as a political weapon. They will reduce oil production by 5% a month until the Israelis withdraw from occupied territories. If the Arab countries keep that pledge, it would reduce their production by almost 50% in 1 year.
What happens to a person who lives out here and needs gas on the weekends? Well, I've told all of my regular customers to be sure and get their gas by Friday at the latest, and then they'd have it for the weekend. But the question still arises: what happens if you don't get it and you've got to run to the store or the hospital or into New York? What happened? I wouldn't know what they do.
Oil prices went up 400%. People had to wait in line for hours just to get gas, and the United States was panicking. The US soon realized what Saudi Arabia was: a powerful, sovereign nation with leverage over the United States. They knew from that point on, this fire had to be put out, or rather, this lion had to be tamed. To make a long story short, the King of Saudi Arabia sold out to the United States and took a cushy deal that would guarantee security to him and his royalty, while at the same time handing over all of his people to the United States. Pretty typical of a monarchical state. The American solution to taming Saudi Arabia is what is known as the petrodollar. It's basically a system guaranteeing that all Saudi oil is sold in US dollars. It guarantees a flow and demand of US dollars around the world, placing a majority of the world's oil in the hands of the US. As part of the agreement, Saudi Arabia must also invest a significant amount of their oil profits into the American economy, along with a few other strategic advantages for the United States. And in return, the United States will guarantee the safety and survival of the Saudi monarchy.
What they're saying is, look, sell us oil and we'll pay you in yuan, the Chinese currency. And people say, well, fine, what am I going to do with the yuan? I can't stuff it under a mattress. The Chinese bond market isn't that big, et cetera. And China said, well, no worries. You can sell the yuan spot for gold on the Shanghai Gold Exchange. And oh, by the way, if you're concerned about the, say, the dollar price of gold or the euro price of gold, you can hedge that on the Shanghai Futures Exchange. So it's sort of it's straight through processing. But first you get, if you're an oil exporter, first you get the yuan, then you exchange it for gold, and then you hedge the gold in the Gold Futures Exchange. So it's not quite as neat and tidy as a gold-backed currency, but it's an important step in that direction.
Right direction.
Most significantly, from my perspective, it takes the dollar out of the equation. This is the beginning of the end of the petrodollar system, where virtually all oil in the world is priced in dollars, which people may not like dollars, but everyone needs oil. And right now, if you need oil and you want oil, you have to have dollars. US dollars. So I think it's the beginning of the end. That's starting to break down.
Yeah.
Since these events, there have been a few squabbles between Saudi Arabia and the United States. I think you know what I'm talking about, even threatening to do it again quite recently. But this story of Saudi Arabia's rise makes clear an obvious pattern and tells me everything I need to know about where they currently sit on the world stage. As mentioned earlier, China is the one to thank for this shift in power. They are the pendulum in motion. Because Saudi Arabia was powerful before, but it became infinitely more as a tool of the United States. Yet as the US loses its grips on the world as a global superpower, so does Saudi Arabia. The deal that once seemed advantageous has become a ball and chain, preventing further industrialization and further relationship building with other countries. Recently, I've been thinking about this idea of the delayed power of oil, and in Saudi Arabia, it's acting in reverse.
President Trump just announced that he ordered a complete blockade of all sanctioned oil tankers going in and out of Venezuela. He also called on Venezuela to return, quote, all the oil, land, and other assets previously stolen from us.
Venezuela, a country that's been in the news quite a bit these days, has long held the record for the largest oil fields in the world. And it's given them immense power. After Hugo Chavez rose to power and nationalized the oil industry, he used those profits to industrialize his nation and uplift his people. But soon that power was stripped from them, as the United States basically made trading their oil on the world market entirely impossible. The US obviously wanted Venezuela's oil, but they couldn't get to it. It held too much power, so they nerfed it, playing the waiting game until they can reach this oil and acquire its powers. Now, that system of international bullying lasted for quite some time given the immense power the United States has held over the world. But as China continues to rise, that oil power is now being unlocked without the help or need of the United States. This is the delayed power of oil. The US once maintained the ability to bully any nation into starvation simply for not working on their exact terms. But that time has come to an end, and the US sees that. The same situation is happening in Saudi Arabia, just in reverse. The oil power that was once so prosperous, held to such a high degree thanks to the strategic backing by the US, now sits in limbo, weakening its power day by day, and thus weakening the power of the Saudi royal family. It's very clear that a shift is taking place on the world stage, and Saudi Arabia has taken note of this. As they expand their tourism, their cultural exports, or for now, imports, Saudi Arabia is not simply bolstering a few secondary industries, they're making clear a drastic shift in national identity. That which was once a powerful tool of the United States is realizing its fading power. The pendulum of the global stage is swinging in the opposite direction, and Saudi Arabia is moving with it. Thank you for watching North Star Radio and Free Palestine.